Hello, welcome to today's session for Lassard's Lunch and Learns. Today is a 30-minute lunch and learn about building a strong foundation for transition planning using person-centered practices. This is part of a series that dives deeper into writing smart transition goals and putting plans into action. But today we're giving you a quick overview with practical applications, tools, and examples. Transition planning is about equipping students with disabilities to lead meaningful adult lives, and our goal is to make sure educators have the tools and confidence to support that vision. Before we dive in, let me share a little about who we are. Lassard is part of the Human Development Center, or HDC, at LSU Health New Orleans. The Human Development Center is the UCED, or University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, for Louisiana. HDC builds capacities and inspires change throughout the life cycle to ensure that people with disabilities are able to participate fully in all aspects of community life. For more information about all of the programs on our website, you can go here or you can scan this QR code. We focus on programs such as early childhood, education, grades K to 12, which is the Lassard Project, post-secondary transition, which is the LSU Paycheck program, and others such as the Deaf Blind Support Project, the FASD Project, and Community Health and Work Incentive Planning. Here's what we'll focus on today. We have 4 simple objectives: understanding the purpose and requirements of transition planning, exploring the 5 person-centered planning competency domains, identify best practices for student-centered transition, and connecting SMART goals to person-centered planning for transition. Transitions planning is not just a compliance requirement. It's about creating meaningful outcomes for students. Research shows that when students have strong transition plans and supports, they're more likely to graduate, find employment, and live independently. By starting early and taking a whole student view, we're helping students see a future that they can own and shape. Let's review the essentials. Effective transition plans are built on student strengths, on student preferences, and student goals. They're tied to measurable IEP goals and supported by services that lead toward post-school outcomes. We'll also review why transition planning begins no later than 16 under IDEA, but how best practice is for us to start even earlier. The earlier we start planning, the better prepared students will be. Collaboration is at the heart of implementation, and everyone has a role to play. In the team for each student, you have teachers to deliver instruction and monitor goals. Families help reinforce skills and support advocacy. The agencies connect students to their adult services, and the students lead their own planning wherever and whenever possible. This slide summarizes the federal and Louisiana specific requirements for transition planning. We'll go step by step. IDEA mandates that transition services start by age 16. However, the Louisiana Department of Education says that best practice transition planning should begin by age 14. The IEP must include measurable post-secondary goals as well as annual goals, and services, supports, and annual goals all must align to the student's post-secondary goals. Remember that these aren't just rules, they're tools to make sure that students have every opportunity to succeed. This is the new form for the transition planning page of the IEP from ESER. It is now at the end of the IEP. For today's purposes, we're going to use the old form that used to be at the beginning of the IEP. It's kind of like at the Oscars when they save the Best Picture award, the biggest award of the night, till the end. ESER decided that the transition planning page now should be at the end. This is a checklist to help you review IEPs for compliance and for quality. If you email me, I'll give you my contact information at the end of this presentation. I'll send you this checklist or any of the tools that we use today. It's a good idea to utilize some kind of a checklist like this one to make sure that your students' transition plans are fully developed and including all of the parts. I'm going to use the checklist with this sample IEP transition plan. And this again is the old form. The reason that we're using it is so that we can see the entire transition plan on just on one page. So Jordan is in the 10th grade. He's 17. He is at the IEP meeting. He is from St. Alonzi Parish. He was invited to the meeting verbally. His post-secondary goal for education and for training is Jordan wants to do something with computers. His employment goal is that he wants to work with computers. Independent living goal is NA. The teacher's assessments used to collect this information was an interview. If you look at the school action steps for instruction, community, employment, and vocational evaluation and daily living skills, it all says the same thing. Enrolled in general education, English, and PE classes. The student action steps for instruction, the student will complete coursework, the family will support the student at school, and NA for the agency because they were not invited and did not participate. For the community experiences, the student will go out into the community and the family will transport the student to the community. And again, the agency is NA. For employment and post-school adult living, the student will read about college and the family will look at college with the student. Agency is NA. For functional vocational evaluation and daily living skills, the student will get a job. The family will transport the student to the job. The agency is NA. The student is going to exit with a diploma in 2 years. So in looking at this with our checklist, here for transition assessments, there were no formal career interest inventory or vocational assessment documented that was utilized to get this information. The student input was gathered informally through classroom discussion only. There's no evidence of tools like ONET or Louisiana Connect or any other validated assessments. If you need assessments like that, there are lots out there that are free. I'm happy to send you a link to several of them. But you should use multiple validated assessments to plan your transition planning. Post-secondary goals, these goals are vague and not measurable. Jordan wants to do something with computers. So there's no clear goals for education, training, employment, or independent living, and the goals are not based on any documented assessment results. For the courses of study, the courses listed don't really align to these stated interests with computer. And just being enrolled in general education, English, and PE, while that's great and inclusive, there could be some technology or computer science electives possibly put into the students' planning. There's no mention of dual enrollment, career tech pathways, or graduation tracks. The agency invitation, there were no outside agencies invited to the meeting. LRS was not contacted despite the student's age and eligibility, and there's no documentation of parental consent to invite the agencies either. Areas that do meet standard requirements or minimum requirements is that the student did participate. Jordan attended the IEP meeting and shared his interests. The annual review, the transition plan is being reviewed annually as part of the IEP process. And there was a team collaboration because the school counselor and special education teacher participated along with the student and the family in this particular IEP. So to improve this transition plan, really simple steps to improve it would be to first administer a formal transition assessment, a career interest inventory, an aptitude survey. Again, if you need some online ones or some free ones, I'm happy to send them to you if you email me. The revising those post-secondary goals to be specific, measurable, and based on that assessment data would also make this IEP much stronger. And to align this course of study with the student's goals and consider relevant electives or certifications could also strengthen this IEP. And inviting agencies, obtaining consent and inviting LRS or other adult service agencies to the future meetings. You don't want to wait till the student's last IEP in high school when they are a senior or a super senior to invite the agency, because at that point, if the agency doesn't show up or if they can't come for whatever reason, that's the last opportunity that they have. Whereas if you start earlier involving the agency, then the family, there's multiple opportunities for the families to do their intake with their agency and see what is out there for post-secondary services that their child's eligible for. Leap Connect course codes and transcripts, they do affect transcripts, and transcripts matter for transition planning. These decisions impact a student's path to graduation and future opportunities, so course planning decisions should always connect back to the IEP goals and those post-secondary plans. Transition planning is not just a special education responsibility, it's a team effort. Students need access to general education experiences, electives, and extracurriculars to develop real-world skills. This slide emphasizes the importance of inclusion and collaboration across all settings. It matters because inclusive experiences build skills, relationships, and confidence. It looks like participating in electives and joining extracurricular activities and multiple general education coursework. And then a really important key point is that the transition planning should include opportunities beyond that special education classroom. The reason why Louisiana best practice is to start transition planning at age 14 is because when some of our students are in middle school, these inclusive practices can really be a focal point to prepare them for what they're going to be doing on and off campus in high school to get them to their post-secondary goals. These best practices that we keep talking about are grounded in research and field experience, centering student voice and their choice, engaging families early as partners, connecting with outside agencies, using data to track progress, providing authentic skill building opportunities in real world. We're going to explore examples of what these look like in action. These are the 5 NCAPPS person-centered planning competency domains. And what that means is this is taken from the National Center on Advancing Person-Centered Practices and Systems. It's an initiative from the Administration for Community Living and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services that helps states, tribes, and territories implement person-centered practices. We're going to dive into each one of these today. These are the 5 different domains, and we're going to explore some tools that you can use to practically apply each to an example case study. Our case study today is going to be Kai. Meet Kai. Kai is 16 years old. They have a TBI and vision impairment. They're on a standard diploma track with accommodations. Their strengths are being determined, organized, motivated, and leadership potential. They have needs for vision supports, memory and processing support, and some workplace accommodations. Their vision is to manage a Starbucks. They also want to earn an associate in business through a community college. This domain reminds us to see the student as more than a diagnosis or a set of challenges. A strengths-based, culturally informed approach starts by identifying what each student does well, what motivates them, and how their culture and life experiences shape their goals. This is also where trauma-informed practice comes in, recognizing that life experiences affect how students respond to planning and support. When we take time to listen, to respect diversity and emphasize strengths, students feel seen and are more engaged in their own planning. This domain serves as the foundation for all person-centered planning work. This is a one-page profile. It captures students' strengths, interests, and identifies their support needs. This is something that you would have the student complete with the teacher or family input. This could be done prior to the transition planning meeting. It also could be done at the transition planning meeting if time allows for that. Kai, what do people like about Kai? Kai said, I am friendly, organized, motivated, and have leadership potential. What's important to me? I like going to Starbucks. I want to work in customer service and business management. What supports I need? I'll need accessible materials for larger print and audio, memory aids, and a chance to role play for job skills. I'll also need accommodations for vision, pre-ed services, and parent and teacher guidance. My hopes and goals for the future, I want to manage a Starbucks and earn an associate in business at the community college. This second domain reminds us to presume competence and give students agency over their choices, balancing safety and dignity of risk while supporting students to take ownership of their futures. The Good Day, Bad Day tool, this particular one, helps students and their facilitators, whether it's a teacher, para, family, identify quantitative and qualitative indicators for what makes a good or bad day. And actionable steps are identified down here to have more good days and less bad days. I've blown up some of the examples on the next slide. For Kai, a good day is defined, can be by I wake up on time and eat breakfast. A bad day can be I oversleep and don't eat breakfast. So, what is an action step to have more good days than bad days? I need a routine so I know what's coming. Another example, a good day is teachers explain things clearly and give me time to think. And a bad day is I don't understand the directions or there's too much work at once. So, an actionable step, teachers should give me directions step by step and check if I get it. This is a tool that would be used with a student that may be struggling with motivation, or maybe a student that you're forming a new relationship with, that you're trying to figure out what the best way to support that student is. And it's okay if you only have 3 or 4. There's no order in which these sections need to be completed. They're completed through a discussion individually with the student and maybe with their parents about what a bad days look like. The important part of this tool is that you want to make sure and have a good day and a bad day that correlates for each one. And then you want to have an action step, at least one action step for each one of these, so that it's clearly defined what the student can do in order to have more good days than bad days. So you're really identifying those action steps down here are the most important. And again, the student needs to be the leader in this discussion. Because if the student doesn't come up with the action steps, or the student doesn't identify for them what good days and bad days are, then this tool is not going to be effective in helping the student find success. Another example is a decision-making profile. This helps students identify for their support personnel how to effectively support them in making decisions. So this is going to be really effective for students that are doing inclusive things like being in gen ed classrooms, going into different outside activities. This could be something that could be provided to new personnel that don't know the student very well about how the best way to present choices to them are, whether it's an instructor or a paraprofessional or a job coach or even a peer mentor, how can that person help and support the student to understand things in the best way? How does that student like to get their information? Transition planning is a team effort and it thrives on collaboration. This domain focuses on respectful planning meetings, inclusive decision making, and effective facilitation strategies. This decision-making agreement focuses on collaboration between an individual and their support team to communicate and facilitate the necessary supports with independent outcomes, highlighting the individual's control in their life. So if you notice these important decisions in my life, where I live, my daily schedule, my friends and social life, medical and healthcare, school and work goals, money and spending, the student identifies how they must be involved, but if you notice on who makes the final decision throughout your discussion when you're utilizing this tool, you should always come up with the same answer. And an important aspect that should be the same in every answer is who makes the final decision? It should be me. It should be the student. And then you will add some caveats like with support from my family or me, unless it affects school or health. Then we decide together, me and my family together, so on and so forth. The important part of this tool is that you help the student identify what's important in their life, how they need to be involved, and that they are in charge of themselves. So down here, what would it take for me to have more control in my life? These are examples of what Kai said during Kai's transition meeting. And it was people giving me real choices, not just telling me. Time to think before deciding, using pictures, lists, and examples so I understand. Support to try new things before making a final decision. Respecting what I can say, even if others don't agree. This is a tool that, again, you would use one-on-one with a student or in a very small group with their support team. An MHP or a counselor has also found this very helpful in helping students sort of discover that they're in charge of themselves and what they need to do to have more control in their life. And it can be really powerful to help students figure out that it's not a whole lot of time before they enter into that post-secondary world where they are an adult and expected to be independent and making decisions for themselves. This is a life trajectory. This is a planning tool to explore with an individual and collaborate on their overall vision for their life, identifying what works and what doesn't work based on their past experiences to construct their post-secondary goals. This is one that would be done beforehand, where the student identifies what their good life looks like and identifies what's not a good life. And here they talk about past experiences that supported their vision and past experiences that did not support their vision. And here is where they're talking about moving forward, things that they should do, and then things to avoid in order to make that vision a reality. It's vital to bridge people to meaningful opportunities in their communities and not just services. Facilitators like you help expand circles of support and opportunity. So cultivating those connections and bridges is crucial in students finding success and independence. When identifying supports, discerning between sustainable and not sustainable supports is important for longevity. So temporary supports, things like school, are not going to be with the student forever. So if something's going to last, like a job or independent living skills, supports that are natural, like peer supports with coworkers, have to be developed in the natural environment, like the workplace. For example, if a one-on-one para to support a student's behavior and presence in general education is necessary and is identified as a necessary support, what happens when the student leaves the school system? Does the para go with the student? No, they don't. If the only transportation support is grandma or mom, what happens when the student outlives that older adult? What is the backup plan for independent transportation? Those are just two examples. Documentation should be clear, accessible, and actionable. This domain emphasizes co-created plans, ongoing review, and data-driven decision-making to ensure quality. The tools that we've talked about so far all lead back to this IEP. And all the purpose of all of those tools is to help you get to this planning page. And you may be thinking, like, where do annual goals fit into this plan? Like, why do they matter? Those are really good questions. And what's really important is that this document becomes a usable, fluid document that has meaning and is relative to the student's post-secondary goals for transition, not just a piece of paper. So transition goals give purpose to the IEP process. They ensure that a student's education connects meaningfully to their future. Post-secondary goals are about adult outcomes. Annual goals, think of those as the stepping stones to getting to the adult outcome. SMART goals in transition planning must connect directly to the student's post-secondary vision. In order to be SMART, clear and detailed, progress can be tracked, realistic given supports, aligned to post-secondary goals, and having a clear time frame. Here's an example of 2 post-secondary goals. These are outcome-focused statements about what the student will do after high school. So after graduation, John will enroll in a 2-year community college program in welding. After high school, Maria will obtain part-time employment in retail with job coaching support. These are annual goals aligned to those post-secondary goals. So for John, given instruction and practice, John will complete a welding safety assessment with 80% accuracy by May 2026. And for Maria, she will conduct 3 mock interviews using appropriate social skills with 90% accuracy by March 2026. Annual goals are measurable skills that the student can work on this year to prepare for those big post-secondary goals. Weak goals are vague. Strong goals are specific, measurable, and time-bound. Here's an example of a weak one. John will explore job options. Here's an example of a strong one. John will research 3 local welding apprenticeship programs and summarize requirements by April 2026. Here's Kai. Here's using our example of Kai and their life course trajectory. Their short-term goals are financial literacy, self-advocacy training, and assistive technology use. That's what they're going to be working on for the short term. For the near term, work-based learning in computer service, community college enrollment. For the long term, they want to earn an associate's in business, manage a Starbucks, live independently with supports. Recognize this long-term one from earlier? And the vision is a career in business management with meaningful community involvement. Post-secondary examples for Kai. For an education after high school, Kai will attend community college and complete an associate's degree in business. For employment, after completing community college, Kai will manage a Starbucks location. For independent living, Kai will live independently near work, managing transportation and finances with supports. Some SMART annual goals to be those stepping stones. By the end of the year, Kai will demonstrate ability to complete cash register transactions with 90% accuracy using role play activities. Education with accommodations, such as large print and audio. Kai will complete business course assignments with 85% accuracy. An independent living one, Kai will use assistive technology to manage a personal budget with 90% accuracy over 3 consecutive months. Some present level examples. A poor example is Kai struggles with money management and often forgets to record expenses. Better present level, Kai can identify coins and bills and use a calculator, but needs support to record and categorize expenses. He responds well to assistive technology and repeated practice. Poor goal, Kai will improve money management skills. A better, SMART goal, using assistive technology, Kai will record and categorize personal expenses with 90% accuracy for 3 consecutive months, as measured by teacher and parent review of budget logs. So to wrap up, transition planning should be person-centered and start early. using person-centered planning domains to ensure goals are individualized and holistic. Transition goals should be smart and student-driven. Our next Lunch and Learn is an overview of executive functioning on Friday, February 6th. Here is my contact information. I'm Tracy O'Donnell, the manager of the LSU Paycheck Program in New Orleans. My contact information, todon1@lsuhsc.edu. And I can provide you with any and all of the tools that I showed you today. My purpose was to show you a lot of different tools so that you can hopefully find something that you could utilize with your students to expand your current transition programs. Hope you've had a great afternoon and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.